a few months ago. I think it was a few months now, something like that.
January 4th.
There we go, January 4th. We got an emergency call from some people that worked at QFC. They happen to be people that are really good friends of ours, and they're part of this congregation. And they said, a man has had a heart attack, and we're not sure what's happening. They think that he's not going to make it. And so they asked our church to go to prayer. And of course, those prayer requests went all over the place. We have prayer chains out in Minnesota, Wisconsin. They were praying, and people all over were hearing about this incident that happened. A few questions for you. First of all, can you tell me, or tell us, what your religious status was prior to this?
Well, that's kind of complicated. First of all, I'd like to say I have immense gratitude for those prayers. They mean a lot to me. I was born and raised, baptized, confirmed Catholic. Then I spent probably close to 30 years calling myself an atheist. Before January 4th, probably around 3 or 4 months before that, I found faith again in God. And now I'm here.
All right. During the time, in the last 30 years, you said you were calling yourself an atheist, so didn't believe there was a God, or didn't care there was a God, just didn't want to have anything to do with religion or God, you know?
When I went to college at an art school, they didn't have anything religious there. So I started a Bible study, naively. And Buddhists showed up, Hindus, Muslims, Jews, American Indians, etc. So it became religious studies. After 2 years of studying all these different religions, I lost faith. Turns out, you know, I thought for 30 years I didn't believe in God. I really don't, looking back, I don't really believe that anymore. I really think I became disillusioned with religion. And God took the brunt of that. Actually, I took the brunt of that.
Good. Tell me, just moments before your attack, is there something that you can remember, something that happened that kind of let you know what was happening? Was there numbness or pain or kind of, I guess I'm not sure, anything that would indicate to you that something was physically wrong?
I was clueless. I didn't know. Even when my last memory was falling to the ground. And I didn't know that either.
Yeah. This is the question you said that many people, in fact you said this is the first question they asked you, and that is, what do you remember from the time, you said the last thing you remember was you hit the ground, and then what happened between that time and the time you woke up in the hospital?
Well, I actually don't even remember hitting the ground, I just remember falling. And then, a day and a half later, I woke up in a hospital bed with tubes down my throat. And when I woke up, I had this moment of clarity. Now, usually when we think of thoughts, they have to do with language, they have to do with words. This moment of clarity had nothing to do with words. And it came to me instantaneously. And that was, I saw how I played a part in how I got there. That was followed by a moment of God consciousness. And I knew He was present. And then I started to think. And then as with my thinking, there's stinky thinking. And it's never good. But actually, a doctor came in immediately and started interviewing me as best they could, because I had tubes down my throat. So.
So what I want to do now is just ask Rick in your own words. Tell us about the experience and where you are since then.
Well, the experience itself was, you know, just blank. I didn't see God, I didn't see my long-lost dog, I didn't see anything, I didn't know anything. I was just not here, I just wasn't present. So when I came to, there was this woman doctor, her name was Dr. Lipke. And she immediately started to take the tubes out of my lungs so she could talk to me. And she asked me if I remembered anything. And I said, no. She goes, you don't remember being on the slab and opening your eyes? And I said, no. She goes, well, let me tell you what happened. She goes, you came in here dead. You weren't breathing, your heart wasn't pumping, and your brain had no activity at all. And it had been like that for probably a half hour. So we assumed you were brain dead. So we weren't really trying to bring you back. Fortunately for me, I did not sign the donor card in the back of my driver's license, because she said they would have immediately just started harvesting my organs. Instead, they had to wait for my sister to come from Wisconsin, which was going to take 5 hours. So for 3 hours, I laid in a slab in the emergency room. Now, of course, all this story I'm telling you right now, I have no recollection. I was dead. And, but they had me on a brain monitor, and my heart wasn't pumping. But they did have oxygen tubes down in my lungs to keep my lungs from filling up with fluid, I assume. But then they started, after 3 hours, they decided they were going to put me in a deep freeze to further protect my organs. And for 3 hours, I hadn't had a heartbeat. For 3 hours, there was no oxygen going to my brain. For 3 hours, I didn't have any brain activity at all. So, and of course, like I say, the doctors told me this story, I don't remember it. And when the doctor started to freeze me, without any brain synapses, without any brain activity going on, my eyes opened. And the doctor, Dr. Lipke, told me her first reaction was she wanted to shut my eyes. But she said, I was following her. I was making eye contact. She said she looked over at the brain monitor and said, this isn't possible. For him to be doing anything, there has to be brain activity. So she looked down at me and asked me if I could move my right index finger. And I did. But she asked me if I could do my left, and I did. Then she asked me a question, and I tried to answer it, the tubes down my throat. And then the brain machine went crazy. It started to make a lot of noise. So she looked over at Dr. Lewis and said, get over here. And he immediately cut a hole in my groin, put a camera up into my heart, looked around. Then he went back in and put a stent in where the heart, one of the arteries had collapsed. And then they restarted my heart. And then I slept basically for 24 hours. And then woke up. So, over the next couple days while I was in the hospital, all three doctors, it was Dr. Lipke, Dr. Lewis, and a Dr. Wong, all came to talk to me. And every one of them started the conversation the same way, basically. And that was that science could not explain what happened to me. They all used the word miracle. I usually argue with people when it comes to stuff like that. I didn't this time. You know, you saw me crying or getting emotional when I talked about coming to. And I realized what got me where I was. And what got me where I was being spiritually dead for 30 years. Living in alcohol and drugs. Because that's what happens when people become addicts. Their spirituality dies slowly as their addiction grows. And that happened to me. Now, I've been going to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've been sober for over 4 years.
Praise the Lord.
My first 3 years in AA, they told me every single day that I had to find God. If I wanted AA to work, if I wanted to stay sober, I had to find God. And for 3 years, I tried, but I couldn't. I could not find Him. I could not conjure up an image of God in my head. I couldn't scientifically or emotionally or physically or any way come up with any concept of God. Now, I tell you, I stand before you right now and say, I believe in God, but I don't have any concept. Maybe I do, maybe I don't, but I don't care anymore. What happened was one day, out of the blue, after 3 years of struggling to find God, I got this really amazing concept. What would it be like if I prayed? And immediately I scoffed at myself. I said, who am I going to pray to? I don't believe in God. I don't have any image of God. Who am I going to pray to? Then I looked around my truck and thought, I'm alone. It's not going to hurt. I'm not going to embarrass myself. And I prayed. And the second I prayed, I turned my will over to God. And God was there.
Amen.
And that was all it took. After 3 years of struggling, all it took was one prayer. And I was back where I needed to be. Before my heart attack, I walked through life trying to see the butterflies and smell the roses. But really what I saw a lot of was evil in man and a lot of negativity. That moment I woke up on my bed, and to this day, which is almost 3 months, well, it's 3 months and 2 days later, 3 days later, I've been overcome with gratitude. And what I see in humanity now, way more than I see the negativity, is kindness, love, generosity. I was led to this church by what I call my three angels, Kit, Brittany, and Linda. And I came here because I had this philosophy in life called following the love. I had that before I found God. I just didn't have any way to do it. God is love. When I was a teenager, I was really religious. I wanted to be a Catholic priest. And back in the late 60s and early 70s, we used to wear blue jean jackets, and we used to like to have patches sewed on. So I had one that right here was round circle, and it was peace, because we had the Vietnam War going on. Then over here I had another circle, and it said, God is love. And those two patches meant a lot to me. I had other patches too, but those were the ones that meant something. God is love. And I'm grateful. When I'm here in the fellowship, or I'm in my AA fellowship, I'm closer to God because I'm closer to you. When I'm closer to you, I'm closer to God. God works through us. God's present in us.
Amen.
So these three doctors told me that they're all scientific people. They're doctors. And they all said that science could not explain what happened to me. And they all used the word miracle. And they all told me that God must have some reason for me wanting to be on this planet. At AA meetings, I tell this story. And I tell them that God was fishing. And He caught me. And He pulled me into the boat. And He didn't really think I was ready. So He threw me back.